When it comes to writing the best comedic characters, there's usually a distinct difference between who they believe they are and who their actions reveal them to be. And South Park's Randy Marsh is no exception. Randy is a walking contradiction, an embodiment of the ethos, do as I say, not as I do. But that exact personality trait is not only what makes Randy hilarious to watch, but undeniably relatable, as none of us are as virtuous as we believe ourselves to be. We each have our own priorities, incentives, and unconscious motivations that are guiding our behaviour, whether we realise it or not. So what makes Randy Marsh tick? Let's take a deeper look at one of South Park's most beloved characters. From the outside looking in, Randy Marsh seems like a helpless hedonist with very little self-control. Once he discovers something that makes him feel good, he'll be unable to resist temptation. Whether it's shopping at Walmart, drinking to excess, smoking pot, fighting for what he believes in, taking his wife to musicals so she'll romantically reward him, using the internet for personal reasons, becoming obsessed with the Food Channel, or embracing the allure of member berries. He's very open-minded to anything that might personally benefit him, and is quick to adapt to the latest trend. But despite his appetite for instant gratification, Randy will always rationalize his behavior and find a way to view himself as the hero no matter what he does. Like most people, he has a need to feel righteous. So although he perceives himself as a good, liberal guy, he'll still allow himself to look down on the homeless, avoid giving money to charity, or pay immigrants from the future peanuts for their work, even looking down on those who lost their jobs to this cheaper labour force, until it happens to him. And then once the tables are turned and he's no longer personally benefiting, he now becomes a leading voice for the opposing side. So in spite of his alleged values that make him feel good to imagine he believes, he's very much just blowing in the wind in whatever direction his personal incentives lie. Once he's on top, he likes to look down on those suffering below. But then the moment he loses his position of power, he now identifies as a victim and expects not just sympathy, but special treatment. This rationalized self-interest leads Randy to feel like he's the real victim of saying the N-word on national television, bemoan everyone else who destroyed the economy by buying frivolous things, even though he did the exact same thing, and embrace the label of alcoholic to explain his irresponsible decision to drunk drive. The beauty of it is, once he feels marginalized, he can now justify doing whatever he wants, even skipping those less fortunate than him in line for a potential miracle cure. He somehow sees no contradiction in always putting himself first. We see another clear example of this in the 19th season. Once the town is ruled by political correctness, Randy now loves jumping down other people's throats whenever they say something that could be perceived as offensive.
He or she is an agenderphobic microaggression, Sharon. You are a bigot.
Conveniently ignoring his own personal history of saying the wrong thing and facing social penalties for it. This all stems from Randy's need to have a clean public image, as despite his age, he still has dreams of making it big, and being known for doing something truly significant with his life.
I almost made something of myself. You know, when you get real close, you start to think that maybe your life is gonna matter.
So you could either say that Randy's self-destructive behaviour is a way to self-medicate because his life hasn't turned out the way he wanted, or that his life has not turned out the way he wanted because he lacks discipline to begin with. South Park creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone put the show's focus on 4 young boys trying to navigate the modern American landscape. But the brilliance of Randy Marsh's character becoming so integral to the show is that he's a different kind of boy, a kid trapped in a grown man's body, desperately trying not to lose touch with the youth, or he'll have to accept that maybe his window for achieving notoriety is behind him. So Randy always adopts the latest trends to try to stay hip with the youth of today, as if he ever feels out of fashion, then he'll have to accept that he's failed. So to combat that fear, we see him become metrosexual, politically correct, endorse safe spaces, and most importantly to him, feign interest in crappy modern music. In the episode You're Getting Old, we see Randy not just pretend to like the music that his fellow grown-ups don't understand, but then take it a step further and actively perform it himself to the best of his abilities. This yearning to be noticed is consistent throughout the series. If there's ever a platform to be seen and heard, Randy will always take it, putting himself center stage. Whether he's a disciple of the economy, a spokesperson for climate change, or representing the anti-war side of America in a sing-off. He wants to leave a footprint behind after he's gone, and can feel his potential slipping away with each passing day.
I know that this late in my life I'll never come so close to finally having meaning.
This underlying motivation manifests in the most bizarre, overly competitive ways possible, like trying to set a world record for taking the biggest crap, being the best dressed metrosexual dad, writing a world-famous musical, or rescuing the World of Warcraft players from a destructive troll. You can really sense his desperation to have been a somebody in how he tries to live vicariously through his own son. He can't stand to see Stan ever lose, as that only mirrors his own shortcomings. So when he hears Stan got served by a group of Orange County dancers, Randy takes it upon himself to teach Stan some of his own dance moves, as a form of self-defense, and encourages his son to seek revenge when he gets outdanced so severely that he ends up in hospital. For Randy, petty childhood competitions like the Pinewood Derby are not merely a chance for father and son to bond, but for him to express his self-worth, even if it involves cheating in the most obvious way possible. And once he illegitimately gains the notoriety he's been seeking, his only goal is to preserve his reputation no matter the cost. So despite his obligation to set a good example for his son, that responsibility always comes second to his true priority, making it big and receiving public validation. Really, Randy suffers from a bad case of main character syndrome. He was always meant to be a secondary background character, but due to his insecurity, he can't help but force himself into view. We see the clearest example of this in The Losing Edge, when Stan and his friends don't even want to play Little League and aspire to lose so they don't have to play anymore. But for Randy, this competition is a mere backdrop to his own personal goals, of being the drunkest fatherly fighter at the games. To the extent he wakes up and trains like a professional boxer, as in his mind, with every stupid fight he wins, he's rising up the ranks in his own Rocky movie. So due to his personal quest for meaning, he can't help but make anything the boys are involved in all about him. But over the course of the show, Randy's unwavering perseverance and dedication to achieve his American dream finally starts to pay off. Even if he can't take all the credit for it, he finds success by secretly going undercover as the young female singer-songwriter Lorde, which reaffirms that he must have talent even if he's too old to be the face of the music. And then once pot becomes legalized, sensing an opportunity, Randy moves the family out to the sticks so he can pursue his new dream of becoming a marijuana farmer, aptly naming his business Tegrity Weed, as Randy must always portray himself as a man of great integrity with a purely noble goal, despite his personal ambitions bubbling underneath. Keep in mind, this is the same father who was happy to deceive his son into thinking that his drug-addicted future self time-traveled back in time to warn him never to use any drugs.
Well, son, pot makes you feel fine with being bored, and if you smoke pot, you may grow up to find out that you aren't good at anything.
A habit that Randy personally indulges in time and time again throughout the series, and then takes real pride in once it helps him to achieve financial success. So we see his hypocritical do as I say, not as I do ethos shining through here. But then when the 2020 pandemic hit, Randy almost had his dream of being remembered for something on a global stage turn into a living nightmare, when he remembers that he was the one who may have drunkenly mated with a bat and a pangolin on his business trip to China. And just like the Pinewood Derby episode, Randy now has to do everything in his power to cover up his involvement. As for a man who craves public admiration so much and tries to preserve his image, the idea of being infamous and blamed for something he is responsible for is too much to bear. Even if it might benefit the public to know the truth, his reputation will always take precedence over anything else. as Randy doesn't pay too much attention to who he actually is or what he actually does, but in who others perceive him to be. Randy Marsh is such a relatable and entertaining character to watch, as he's symbolic of the stereotypical all-American man desperately chasing after his American dream. He has grandiose ideas of himself that don't quite conform with reality, so he channels this insecurity into overly competitive behaviours, and offsets any existential anxiety with undisciplined hedonistic consumption. But no matter how much his actions don't line up with his words, or how many of his alleged values he's willing to betray, he never stops believing in himself as the central hero of every story he's a part of, even if he was only ever meant to be a background character. Well, if you've made it this far, firstly, thank you for watching, but if you could now give the video a like, possibly even leave a comment and click on that subscribe button, it will encourage that mysterious algorithm to do its thing.